Welcome to DAO Talk Interviews, a weekly podcast series that sits down with the IRL voices behind the online usernames of the leaders in the budding DAO ecosystem. Each week, we'll dive deep with an individual or individuals on what they're working on, what brought them into the DAO space, and so much more. Hosted by me, Tommy, and sometimes my friends, Frisson, Cool Horse Girl, Caden, and Ellie. Each episode is brought to you and powered by Tally.xyz, the home of DAO governance. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of DAO Talk Interviews. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to DAO Talk. We have the original DAO Talk duo. It's kind of like I'm pinching myself right now, Frisson. We haven't been back together on this pod for a minute. How are you, my friend?
I'm well. It's back. It's a classic DAO Talk guest. You know, I miss the good old days, honestly, of DAO Talk. We might need to bring them back.
I know. I miss them every day. But it's good to be back. But without further ado, let's jump into what we're talking about today. If you're clicking on the spot, we're talking about the Tally protocol and the Arbitrum DAO. And the staking proposal just went live. Frisson, maybe let's give a little bit of a refresher on, we announced the Tally protocol about 2 months ago, back in June. A lot has happened since then, and we're going to dive, into the specifics of, the staking proposal that went live on Arbitrum and is most likely going to pass. If you've listened to this, it's reached quorum and will be executed on chain in the next couple of days. But let's give a little bit of an overview of, what the Tally protocol is, what we're hoping to achieve with that, and then, kind of the specifics to the Arbitrum DAO. And then we can use kind of the Arbitrum DAO as a template for how this will look in other DAOs as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the Tally protocol is here to save governance and governance tokens. There's a couple of parts to the Tally protocol. One part is governance staking. And so you can integrate your protocol or your governance with the Tally protocol to enable a native governance staking mechanism where by staking your governance token, you're eligible for receiving rewards or value that the protocol accrues, and that is tied to active participation in governance. So it's tied to ensuring that your voting power is delegated to yourself or someone else who is actively participating in protocol governance. So that's the governance staking part. And then the second part is a governance LST or liquid staking token. And that's where we enable users to have a liquid stake position and are developing utility and integrations for the liquid stake governance token in the restaking and DeFi ecosystems. So that is the Tally protocol, and we're super excited to build out a Tally protocol integration for the Arbitrum DAO to enable ARB staking and also an ARB liquid staked token.
Yeah, we have talked about this ad nauseum, the details of the protocol itself. So we're going to link, we have a really good series we did with Raf and Dennison, and also Scopelift, who is our partner in building out the protocol on the technical side. So if you want to dive into the technical side of this, go check those out. We'll have some links to like white papers and some delegation education series around like what are the benefits to that if you want to dive deeper into that. But we want to talk specifically today about the Arbitrum DAO. So Frisson, people know, and if they're not familiar, you're pretty active in the Arbitrum DAO, one of the larger delegates, pretty active with the forums, always, posting proposals on chain to Tally and to Snapshot. But let's talk about, kind of first steps of, why the Arbitrum DAO as the first one to introduce staking. And, how has that process been from like, beginning, talking to important delegates, members of the Arbitrum DAO, and what it took to actually, get support for this, bring it to a temperature check, and then we can kind of dive into, the on-chain aspect of this, and what are the next steps.
It's been a multi-month journey engaging with Arbitrum DAO and ecosystem stakeholders to kind of craft the proposal to a place where it has broad community support. There's a lot of interest in a number of different aspects of ARB staking, one being how the rewards are funded, and then the other key one being how the kind of integration with governance participation is defined. So on the staking reward side, the Arbitrum protocol produces value in a number of different ways. One way is sequencer fees. So there's sort of a surplus in the sequencer fee generation between what the user pays and what the what the Arbitrum network pays to Ethereum L1, and that surplus fee is currently sent to the DAO treasury and is being accumulated over time. And so that's one source of fees. And there's kind of a few others that are either live or will be live sometime soon. One of those is Orbit chains, so Arbitrum L3s that are built on top of Arbitrum 1 pay I think it's 10% of their surplus fees to the Arbitrum DAO. And then also if you want to fork Arbitrum and create your own L2 that's based on the Arbitrum stack, there's a licensing fee there as well. And then also the DAO is looking at MEV transaction ordering mechanism called Time Boost, that in which users could pay to sort of get to the front of the line in terms of having access to the ordering of transactions when they're submitted in when they're sequenced by the Arbitrum sequencer, and there'd be a sort of fee associated with that as well. And then also there's multiple treasury diversification initiatives being considered or actively executed by the DAO that could potentially generate fees. So there's a lot of potential sources of fees. Last one that I should mention is ARB inflation. There's an option to turn on sort of perpetual annual inflation of the ARB token. It's a low amount. It's like a couple percent or something like that of the total supply, and that's another potential source of staking rewards. So where we are today in the process is I'm going to help lead a working group within the DAO that will determine and make a recommendation on kind of a V1 fee source for staking rewards. So that's kind of one thing that was really important, a really important part of the discussion as we kind of formulated the proposal, is sort of like how we would go about determining the sources of staking rewards. And then the second point is, as I mentioned, the key part of the Tally protocol is that the governance staking rewards are actually dependent on active governance participation. And this is a little bit of a nuanced thing to actually implement because it comes down to what the definition of governance participation is. In the Arbitrum DAO, a lot of contribution to governance is actually done off-chain, right? Like there's on-chain voting, right? So do you actually vote on proposals or not? But that's actually a very small percentage of the work that ends up getting done in terms of proposal feedback and consideration and formulation, and just other contributions, governance contributions, attending governance calls, actively contributing to proposals, etc. And we think it's important that sort of a more holistic view or definition of governance participation is included in rewards eligibility. And so I'm also going to participate in a DAO working group that will kind of define what governance participation means in the context of staking rewards eligibility, and then ultimately implements that into the ARB staking mechanism. So those are a couple of the topics that were really important as we kind of moved this proposal through the governance process and worked with the DAO to kind of define what ARB staking will look like when we implement it.
Yeah, you talk about this process of kind of getting it to not across the finish line, but across that that first goalpost of actually starting to build it and implement it. It went through a temperature check a couple weeks ago. It's been on chain for the past couple weeks. It's reached quorum. It's ready to pass. So let's talk a little bit about you talked just then about the process of communicating and really working hand in hand with the DAO itself. And Arbitrum kind of felt like the obvious first key partner because you are so involved with them, and we work pretty closely with them at Tally. What does this look like as we it gets passed on chain, we start to build it out? What is like the ultimate bull case for this being implemented in the DAO? You kind of just talked about it, but you talked in the beginning about we're saving governance tokens, we're making them valuable, we're making them sustainable. What does this look like in 2-3 months, 6 months, a year down the line for the Arbitrum DAO and for the DAO ecosystem as a whole?
Yeah, there's a couple of really important aspects or mechanisms by which ARB staking will benefit, in my view, the long-term health of the Arbitrum governance and the protocol and the Arbitrum protocol. One is it creates a sort of reason to hold the token other than buying voting power. So today, the Arbitrum DAO, the only utility sort of associated with the ARB token is voting and governance, and that creates a sort of potentially concerning or an adversarial dynamic over the long run, where as the DAO starts to accumulate value, for example, today it's accumulated almost $50 million of ETH from the sequencer surplus fees that I mentioned earlier. The use case for sort of like owning ARB to vote and have control over that treasury gets more compelling. Meanwhile, meanwhile there isn't sort of a commensurate incentive to use or own the token for any reason other than having voting power or control over that treasury. And we actually recently saw this play out in the Compound DAO, which is sort of at a much more advanced stage of this dynamic, where finally someone just bought a lot of comp and used it to vote for transferring a lot of the treasury basically to themselves, right? And this is not a good outcome for a really valuable infrastructure that we're trying to govern, right? Like the Compound protocol is a really valuable piece of the DeFi ecosystem. The Arbitrum protocol is a really valuable part of Ethereum, and the people who are governing it should be incentivized to think about it for the long term, not just how to sort of immediately extract whatever value is currently in the treasury. So creating this staking mechanism and making it dependent on long-term governance participation it sets up a different incentive where you now have another reason to hold the token, which is the staking rewards, and you also but those rewards are only activated by sort of long-term aligned governance participation. And so we think that creates a much healthier dynamic and sort of incentive mechanism around the DAO and improves the security of the Arbitrum protocol. The second piece is just extending the utility of the ARB token in general, right? It's not just for governance. It's also just like a generally useful token in the on-chain ecosystem. But today, only 1% of ARB, of the total supply of ARB, is actually held in smart contracts. And what that means is that the ARB token is not actually being used actively in the on-chain ecosystem. And we think the governance token, of really important part of the Ethereum ecosystem, should be actively used and should be a valuable a valuable part of the on-chain ecosystem. It should certainly be used as a meaningful part of the TVL of DeFi projects and the Arbitrum ecosystem and things like that. And so by creating a governance LST that can be used, is liquid and can be used in the Arbitrum ecosystem, but while still sort of like retaining the underlying voting power for use in the DAO, that will just expand the Arbitrum ecosystem by making the ARB token more active within it, and also again create sort of another use case, another utility for the ARB token that contributes to long-term health and sustainability of the DAO.
Yeah, I feel like, and I think we're going to shift this in the way we just start to educate people about it, but it's a very technical, like the Tally protocol. It's very technical, like staking, liquid stake governance, tokens, redelegation, et cetera. It's very technical, but I think at its core, and you really hit on this, is it's a wholesale change to the way, not a wholesale change, but it really makes the token dynamic and the value of the token and the way people interact with them and interact with the DAO much more efficient and much more synergistic in regards to how DAOs are actually able to operate. So it's really exciting. I'm excited to see, obviously me, I'm working with it and I see it, but I think if we can, kind of translate the how, motivated and excited we are about this to the entire ecosystem, it's going to be really cool. So I'm excited to see this, start to get built out, and I'm sure everyone else is, in something as large and as impactful as the Arbitrum DAO. But I guess to wrap it up, what about this entire process has been the most rewarding for you so far? And what has this process been like as a whole? Maybe like specifically within the Arbitrum DAO, and also like what do you see for the future of DAOs as we we're 2 or 3 years into working at Tally? What is the future of this, and how excited are you for it?
I'm super excited. Building product through DAOs is really hard, but ultimately really rewarding, right? Like when you are bringing a proposal to a DAO as active and engaged and large and complex as Arbitrum, what you originally have in your mind is going to end up shaped and morphed and molded by the views of the community. So it's a lot harder in some ways than just saying like, okay, I've done a little bit of user research, now I'm going to build this product, because you really truly have to integrate all of the different preferences and viewpoints and feedback of Arbitrum delegates and token holders. But ultimately, what's really interesting is I think it leads to the most sound possible product design coming out the other end, because you sort of have to go through this upfront process to understand user needs before you finalize the implementation and design. So it was hard and a lot of work. If you're like extremely bored this weekend, you can go read the like many hundreds of replies to the proposal forum thread to understand just how much input was included. But ultimately, I think it's really rewarding because you end up building a really compelling product that has a lot of user feedback baked into it.
Yeah, I love it. I'm excited for it, man. Again, we'll link everything in the show notes below if you want to dive deeper into anything specific. But we just want to give you guys a quick update on a pretty large milestone for the Tally protocol and also for the Arbitrum DAO itself. Again, that's live on Tally right now. I think voting ends in a couple of days, maybe even in a couple hours. I'm not sure, but that's gonna pass on chain, and we're really excited to roll this Tally protocol out, get it built, and start bringing it to other DAOs outside just the Arbitrum ecosystem. So really excited about it. Frisson, thank you for taking the time to come back to your home on DAO Talk. Hopefully we'll see you again more in the future. But peace, man.
Peace.